Darkness to me is drug addiction. It's dealing with chaos, which I was just bathed in when I was younger. And it's when you really give up on yourself and I believe your soul comes out of you.
A lot of anger in my life, a lot of jealousy, had a hard time forgiving people, alcohol, a lot of heavy drinking on the weekends, and in my life, I've had a lot of anger, and unfortunately it's been very hurtful to a lot of people in the past.
Loneliness to me is one of the worst feelings to have, and when you realize that you're dependent on something that's a substance, you have a hard time ever getting out of that hole.
I remember we had a neighbor who told my wife that she could hear me screaming from her backyard, and that struck me one day that, wow, I've got a neighbor who's 200 feet away, 300 feet away, a football field away from me. They can hear me yelling at my kids.
The drug use only got worse after time, and it was switching from drug to drug to drug once one stopped working.
A friend of mine that I golf with every weekend, he started to stop golfing on Sundays. I said, "Where you been?" He says, "I'm going to church." He says, "You know what, I'd really like you to come." And so he kept prodding me, and finally I talked to my wife about it. We decided to come to church and give it a try. So I just realized at that point that through self-assessment that I was not leading a godly life, and I really needed to change. And it all came crashing down on me when I had a pastor sitting in front of me telling me about himself and how weak he was. And I've never heard that from a man of God before. I've never heard how weak you can be. And so that's when all the tears started coming out and the emotion, and I had to let it out. And it was my way of saying, I'm horrible, and I need help, And that's when he said, do you want to accept Jesus Christ as your Savior? Because you can surrender all this to Him. You can take all this weight off your shoulders and off your chest, so you're not having that heart attack. And I said yes.
So then I realized, I'm losing my girlfriend, I'm sleeping in my car, I don't have any money, I don't know where I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get kicked out of my apartment that my girlfriend is living in and I'm not. And I just remember the thought of wanting to kill myself.
Now that I realize what's going on in my life, how do I become a better father, right? And to my 4 children. And so I really, really tried my best to eliminate this anger issue that I had, to be more understanding and more loving to them, and make sure that God really shone through me. In the meantime, though, my 2 older kids had already moved out of the house, and my son AJ was up at college.
I was about to do it. I was 20 minutes out of town. I had another 40 minutes to go. I had a plan all set up, and my dad called me and said, "Can you stop by?" So I went over and I talked to him, and he actually knew more than what I thought. He knew about what was going on in my life and how I must feel, and I broke down crying. And I told him, I'm gonna go kill myself. And he said, you can do that, or I can help you. And the next day we went to detox together, and we started the process of recovery for me.
He spent 7 days in the detox hospital, and I was the only one that he wanted to visit with. And so every night I would show up with my Bible and I'd read my Bible to him.
I didn't want to be bothered. I felt awful.
I would read until I either got tired or he got tired and fall asleep, and then I would just pray with him and I'd leave.
After 4 days, it was the first time that in the past 7 years that I wasn't high.
Pastor Reid shared his story with him, his testimony, the same way he shared it with me, and also I shared mine with him. It was one that came from my heart, and I talked to him about how horrible my life has been without God in it and all the mistakes I made, but now I also said this is what my life is with God. I think that was refreshing for him to hear, and from what he told me, later on that night is when he accepted Christ as Savior.
I remember just getting on my knees, and I just thought, Jesus, if you can just take some of this pain away, and I'm sorry for all my sins. And I just confessed, and was crying, and it was awful, but I also got this weird tingle, and it kind of felt like 1,000,000 pounds was lifted from my shoulders. I felt that I was being transformed into something that is meant for a lot greater things.
My life has really changed a lot, and I am more, I'm just easier to deal with, and I love my kids. And if you ask my kids or my wife or even people that work for me, what is Keith like today since he found God? They'll tell you that he's not an angry man anymore, and he's a compassionate, caring, loving man that loves Jesus Christ. And so it's really been a blessing for me.
He's become a better person. I've become a better person, and we meet at this place where it's father and son again. Now when he says, I love you, I feel the love, and it's nice to be able to reciprocate that as well, because I love him too, and he's an amazing person, and without him, I honestly wouldn't even be alive. So I have a lot to give back to him, and doing these Bible studies together, it's an amazing thing to be able to even have the opportunity to talk to kids.
Hey Jackie, how are you?
I lead a high school Bible study on Wednesday nights at our house, and we started it about 2 years ago. And it's just been a great opportunity for me to connect, not only with my own kids, but with, their friends and other kids from this church and from the area. And now AJ's co-leading the Bible study with me, and it's just it touches my heart so much that God is just at work here, and God has taken, a guy like me and even, my son who's a recovered, drug addict, and we're leading high school kids, and we're sharing the great news of Christ with them. And AJ, he's trying to help them overcome all the hard things in their life.
I truly believe it's transforming them to be better people. And if one kid out of the 15 kids that go gets 30 seconds of what I said, and it makes them make one separate decision in life that's a better decision, then that's why I spend all the time doing it. And I would just tell that kid that don't give up on God, because he's never going to give up on you.